Managing Multiflora Rose in the landscape. Multiflora Rose is a weedy plant capable of spreading into most landscape settings, and as such, you'll find good advice on its management from several teams at Penn State Extension. That would include the folks from field and forage crops, forestry, and the horticultural teams. Multiflora Rose is an invasive shrub that, if left unmanaged, can develop into nearly impenetrable thorny thicket that can outcompete more desirable plants in the landscape. Multiflora has become problematic across the landscape, particularly in agricultural settings like pastures, forested areas, and riparian areas, and anywhere left untended. This weed can take hold and proliferate. The plant was introduced from Asia with good intentions. It had been propagated and promoted as a living fence and as a perceived habitat enhancement for wildlife. Collectively, we've since come to understand that on balance the plant has a negative impact on our landscape and is in fact now on Pennsylvania's noxious weed list. Designation on this list makes it illegal to spread or propagate. It readily spreads by layering or a drooping of branches that reroot and then form new freestanding plants, and seed dispersal by birds and other animals is certainly important. Controlling Multiflora Rose, like any pest management strategy, one needs to make certain to positively identify the pest, be certain that an appropriate control measure is used. While most rural landowners readily recognize Multiflora Rose, those who are unfamiliar should check with a resource professional or trusted source of information to confirm their identification. Integrating preventative, cultural, mechanical, biological, and chemical methods together with a good dose of diligence are often necessary to successfully manage Multiflora Rose. While it's impractical to keep birds and other wildlife from spreading seed, it is possible to prevent Multiflora Rose from becoming a problem if infestations are controlled in their early stages. In pastures and active farmlands, for example, ensuring optimum fertility, favoring desirable plants, and timely crop harvesting or mowing after grazing can help keep Multiflora Rose small and vulnerable to effective herbicides. Scouting to find and then spot treating these pioneer plants in any landscape setting can prevent the establishment of larger, more difficult to control plants. Mechanical methods of control may be the best place to start. Setting large, established plants back and applying other methods of control to the regrowth can be a key strategy. Mechanical methods of control include mowing and excavating. Research has demonstrated that 3 to 6 mowings per year for more than 1 year are necessary to control Multiflora Rose. Repeated mowing depletes the plant of root reserves and eventually kills the plant. And while it can be costly, time-consuming, and laborious to mow, it can be a good option for certain situations. Excavating, by whatever means possible, is another mechanical method of control, but roots with intact shoots will again likely require some sort of follow-up treatment. Biological control agents are natural enemies that attack the target plant at various stages of growth. While biological control methods might be safe, permanent, and economical, they are often unsuccessful and take a long time to take hold. Biological control agents may include insects, disease-causing organisms, and herbivores. With respect to insects, unfortunately most associated insect pests of Multiflora Rose only cause minor injury to a plant with limited impact to control an infestation. Of the pathogens or disease-causing organisms of Multiflora Rose, of most interest is the rose rosette disease. It is caused by a virus that's vectored by a mite. Infected plants generally die in 2 years' time. The first symptoms evident on an infected plant is a bright red and dark red mosaic pattern on new leaves. In time, numerous lateral shoots develop that are usually bright red in color and form dense clusters called witch's brooms. Entering winter in this condition, the plants are susceptible to frost damage and likely to die before very long. The images here show the microscopic mite and the symptomology of an infected plant. Herbivores can help with biological control of Multiflora Rose. Goats and sheep are adapted as browsers and less so as grazers, preferring brush and other broadleaves relative to pasture grasses. There is a science beyond the scope of this short discussion regarding stocking requirements and management, but animals, especially goats, can be a good alternative control measure that can help reduce or eliminate costs associated with other control options. And finally, chemical control in the form of herbicides are warranted to supplement, not replace, preventative, cultural, mechanical, or biological methods. With respect to chemical control, to make herbicides as effective, safe, and economical as possible, you need to be certain of certain things. 1. Select the appropriate herbicide for the weed problem in the landscape setting or production system it is impacting. Read the herbicide label carefully and follow directions. Herbicides have labels which are legal documents that specify when and how a material can be used. You want to make certain that you apply at the proper time and growth stage of the weed for the material being used. You want to use the recommended amount. Doing so will avoid injury, soil residues, or poor control. Make certain to calibrate your equipment and your application technique. Penn State has several fact sheets to help with this very important task. And lastly, wear the appropriate protective clothing. That too is spelled out on the herbicide label. Various methods of application can be used to apply herbicides to Multiflora Rose. The chosen method is a function of the herbicide being used, the growth stage of the plant, time of year available to treat, and perhaps even applicator preference. An applicator, for example, may have more time available for control activities during the dormant season than during the growing season. Application methods include soil, foliar, thin line, and basal bark treatments. Some labeled materials can be used in a variety of ways at various times throughout the year. Others might have more specific seasons when they are best effective. Soil treatments are herbicides applied to the soil and are usually residual, meaning that they persist in the soil long enough so that root uptake can take place. Treatments are typically applied as liquids, granules, or pellets to the ground area beneath the plant canopy, and application timing will depend on the herbicide being used. Foliar treatments are common methods of application. Optimum control for foliar treatments is after the leaves and green stems are fully deployed in late spring or early summer, and then again in late summer or fall, depending on the herbicide being used. And with any foliar applied product, the effectiveness can be reduced in times of drought, extreme temperatures, or rainfall shortly after treatment and weed growth stage. And it's important to understand here that applicators need to be mindful of spray drifting onto unintended targets while using foliar herbicides. Thin line treatments work best in early spring through early summer to control smaller Multiflora Rose plants. A thin line treatment involves the application of undiluted herbicide around the stems that are ½ inch or less in diameter. This method can be a bit impractical if a larger bush has a multitude of stems. And in fact, in these situations, a basal bark treatment, compared to other treatment methods, can have several advantages. Namely, they are comparatively less expensive, have a low risk of injuring desirable plants, and control is more consistent than foliar treatments. Additionally, basal bark treatments can be applied from late December till early April before leaf out when other field work is slow, and another benefit to applicators at this time is the better visibility, helping to avoid thorns. There are several active herbicidal ingredients available for control of Multiflora Rose. Actual trade names might vary depending on how the material is labeled for use in pastures, riparian areas, or woodlands. For example, Accord XRT is the glyphosate formulation labeled for forestry and certain non-cropland use, while Roundup or Touchdown are associated with cropland use. We offer general discussion here on application recommendations, and applicators are encouraged to read herbicide labels or consult with one of several extension publications for more information. The table provides a performance rating for a number of effective herbicides labeled for pasture, but understand some of this information is also applicable to the materials that are labeled for non-cropland and forestry applications. And understand that products with an 8+ or better rating are indeed more desirable. To summarize our herbicide use in Multiflora Rose, they can be used safely and effectively in many production and non-cropland settings to augment other control activities. Again, make sure to read and follow all directions posted on the label. As mentioned at the outset, controlling Multiflora Rose requires diligence. It is only successful if follow-up maintenance is practiced, as the plant can quickly repopulate an area. Follow-up might involve herbicides or mechanical practices like routine mowing, but also can include sound cultural practices like adequate fertility and management of a desirable pasture vegetation. Good luck!